So I've had a week to reflect. Probably the worst NBA game I have ever watched. And yes, obviously I'm talking about the Celtics Game 7, Eastern Conference Finals at home, going down 3-0, coming back 3-3, all the mimicking of the 0-4 Red Sox, just to get blown out at home. Embarrassed. Everybody outside of Derek White sucked. Everybody, Jason's ankle, I know, he still played like 44 minutes. He ran. We can't have all these excuses. The team was so bad, I was so embarrassed as a Celtics fan. And so obviously, like I bet a lot of other Celtics fans, I wanted to blow the whole thing up that night and the next day. Blow it all up, See ya, Jalen. See ya, Marcus. See ya, Horford. Everybody go. Everybody but Jason and Derek White, get off the team. Pack your bags. See ya. I'm sure a lot of you are in the same boat. It was that bad of a loss. So obviously, with about a week to reflect, I've changed my stance. We need, for the Celtics to win a championship in 2024, we need to make some medium tweaks. And we'll sort of run through them. They're not as drastic as what, Memorial Day night I wanted to do. It's more realistic. So let's start, right? So, in context, Jason Tatum is 25. Jaylen Brown is 26. They're about to enter their prime. You do not split them up yet. Not yet. So Jaylen, he gets the Supermax. He's eligible. I believe it's 5 for $295. But it doesn't kick in for a year. So you're not saddled with that, extreme cost, in this upcoming season. Because the new CBA makes it hard to really build a team, especially if you're going to do 2 Supermaxes, which it would seem the Celtics would inevitably do, once Jason is also eligible. So Jaylen gets the Supermax. So he's back. And look, yes, I know. He had a horrible postseason. It wasn't just Game 7 where he turned it over, which felt like every possession. All the way back to the Atlanta Hawks series, he sucked. And I think it had a lot to do with cutting his hand. Remember, he was watering his plants, and then he's cut his hand, and it was bad. It was gushing. During the Atlanta series, after he got the stitches, it would gush a little bit. I think that had to do with it, to a degree. And then I think, maybe the All-NBA nod he got took a little of the pressure off. It's like being in a contract year. He was about to get the bag. But he was awful, but he's a fantastic player, and he needs to be back. So Jaylen stays. So now we're probably the most drastic move in terms of trades is finally, because I've wanted this for a couple of years, you trade Marcus Smart. It's time. Look, Marcus was pretty good in the playoffs, and there were a couple of games that we don't win without Marcus Smart. Most notably, Game 6 against the 76ers. He was the only one playing good through 3 quarters. He kept the Celtics in it, and then Tatum did the rest in the 4th. So I really appreciate Marcus Smart. I appreciate the grit, the defense, his, definition of leadership. I do. But it's time to go. The problem with Marcus Smart is he thinks he's a lot better and a lot more important than he really is. In reality, he's a role player. He doesn't see it that way. Marcus Smart sees this as his team. I can guarantee it. He's the longest tenured Celtic. It's his way. He's seen this, franchise turn around from the tanking days because he was their first pick after that, Pierce KG trade with Brooklyn. He needs to go because it needs to be abundantly clear that this is Jason Tatum's team. Because I think it's a little gray. Because I think Marcus is kind of the guy saying he's the leader. He's the point guard. And I think it gives Jason an excuse to not be a leader. Because this past season, Jason made massive steps in his game, but the final step is being the leader of the team as the franchise player. He needs to demand the ball. You can't be not scoring in 4th quarters He's got to be a leader. He's got to be a little louder because he is. We know he's capable of it because every time he drives to the hoop and misses a layup, he's complaining to the refs. So he does have that fire in him, but he's got to have it to his teammates. He's got to be the leader. So Smart is getting traded, as I said. So I think where he would go in my eyes would be the Indiana Pacers, and it would be Marcus Smart for Buddy Hield straight up. The money is about the same, 20-ish million a year. Buddy Hield's contract expires in 2024, so it's perfect for the Celtics, who got some flexibility really only this next season, which is why it's so important to win now, because it's going to get so much harder, let me tell you. And then Smart would help a very young Indiana team with defense, with being a leader. Marcus will be 30. He'll help them a lot. I see it as a win-win. And then the Celtics have a really true shooter, because since Missoula's not going anywhere, the three-pointers are still going to be happening, and Marcus Smart blows at shooting threes, and Buddy Hield is fantastic at it, probably one of the best in the league. So Buddy Hield, welcome to Boston. And so what's going to happen with Buddy Hield, right? He will be the new sixth man, because we are now starting Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon is now the starting point guard of the Boston Celtics. He probably always should have been. He was the best of the three guards with him, Derek White, and Marcus Smart. But I felt like Boston, the Celtics organization, always felt obligation and loyalty to Smart to start him. Malcolm is now starting. So you got Malcolm at point, Jalen at the 2, Jason at the 3. And now put your drink down, because it'll sound crazy, but hear me out. For the power forward position, you go sign Draymond Green. Yeah, the 4-time champion. Draymond Green, come to Boston. And look, there's kind of mutual hate. The fans hate him, he hates the fans, but who cares? Money talks. Get him here for like a 2-3 year deal, 20 mil per. You can do it right now. Do you know why Draymond needs to be here? Because first of all, he has done something that nobody on the roster, the coaching staff, or Brad, the GM, has done. Draymond has won a champion. He's a champion, a 4-time champion, and we need somebody that has seen it go all the way, has held the trophy. Draymond can come here, and he can be kind of the new Marcus Smart, the kind of the fire, the dog. And the only difference is Draymond doesn't need to take the game-winning 3 every, time. It's so annoying. Draymond, he'll have games where he'll only score 5 points, but then he's got like 10 rebounds, 7 assists. He moves without the ball. He's a great team guy, and he would help the Celtics so much. Help Jason, continue to develop. They have a good friendship already. And he would just be so good for the team. He's the guy that everybody wishes they had on their team. And then you play him and you despise him. But we need that guy, especially to replace Marcus. So then you round it out with Rob Williams starting. And look, I felt like last season with Rob, we shelved him. He had his surgery. He missed the first half. But we were all waiting, ramping him up. He never really played big minutes. He was coming off the bench. But that's unacceptable. He's like 24. He's not old. You don't need to load manage Rob Williams. Yeah, I know he's injury prone, but we've seen that doesn't really have a play. It doesn't matter. You got to have him playing low 30 minutes. He needs to be your starting center. He's an incredible defender. Much like Draymond, he doesn't need to score, but he can, he can do the lobs. He's a very just great guy to have out there. So that means Al Horford, you go to the bench. So Al's now in the second unit. So Al Horford, I genuinely wanted to trade him in my mind immediately after that game. I'm kind of tired of him. He talks too much. He made that elite shooter comment, then proceeded to blow for the remainder of the playoffs. He's getting older. He needs to be on the bench. He can be more important when he needs to D a Joel Embiid, but he cannot be starting for the Boston Celtics anymore. So he joins Buddy Hield on the bench, and that is just super important. And, you can't just get rid of Al and Marcus. I believe ultimately that would be way too drastic, and I think that would hurt the team because you're essentially flipping Smart for Draymond, and I think they have very similar personalities. But then you have kind of the comfort and familiarity of Al Horford's leadership. So he's now on the bench, second unit. And then obviously we got Derek White, who's just fantastic. In certain ways I'd want to start him, but I think we need to have a strong bench. And then we wrap it around finally with a guy we all forgot we had, Danilo Gallinari. He's probably going to opt into his player option. He can hit threes. He's like a better Sam Hauser. That's all he needs to do. I don't know how healthy he's going to be, which is why this is like the 9th guy on the roster. But Gallinari rounds it up. And that's the roster. That is the team that will get the Celtics a championship next year. And then you look at the coaching staff with Mazzulla. Bring in some veteran guys. I don't care. Somebody to help Mazzulla, who will continue to keep learning, as anybody does after a rookie season, whether it be a player, a coach, a GM, etc. So my last point is we are now in the most win now scenario under my plan, because Jalen's Supermax will not kick in for a year, and then obviously the year after, next offseason, Jason becomes eligible for the Supermax, and you hope and assume that he gets it from the Celtics. So you kind of have a window where you're only paying no Supermax or one Supermax. And then after 3 more seasons, essentially, you got both Jalen and Jason making absurd money, and it would be pretty hard to build a competitive roster. So, in my head and my prediction, you got to win a championship in the next 2 years. You do. Or I think Jalen would probably get traded. So this is win now. No more just good enough. This is the Celtics championship roster for next year.